Imagine this, you're a world-renowned surgeon, a man who has everything. Wealth, power, respect. But in one heartbreaking moment, none of that matters. Your mother, the woman who raised you, is lying in a hospital bed, her life slipping away. And then, she walks in. The nurse with the gentle hands and the kind eyes, the one who treats your mother like her own. You try to ignore it, but something about her pulls you in. The way she smiles, the way she calms your fears without saying a word. But here's the thing, she's hiding a secret. A big one. And by the time you find out, it might already be too late. If that just hooked you, then stay right here, because this story is about to unravel in ways you won't see coming. I know why you clicked on this video. You want a love story with depth, with twists, with real emotion. Maybe you've been through heartbreak yourself. Maybe you've wondered if love can really cross boundaries, if two people from different worlds can truly find each other. Well, today, you're getting answers. But I'll warn you, this isn't some fairy tale. This is messy, unpredictable, and oh so real. And by the end, you'll be asking yourself, what would I have done? Let's talk about Dr. Daniel Carter. Successful. Charismatic. The kind of man who walks into a room and commands it. But beneath that polished exterior? A son drowning in guilt. His mother's illness has shaken him to his core, and for the first time in his life, money can't fix what's broken. Then there's Emily Hayes, the nurse who changes everything. She's not like the socialites chasing his fame or the colleagues who see him as a trophy. She sees him. The real him. The broken parts, the fears, the man behind the title. And that's dangerous. Because the more he falls for her, the more he risks losing. His reputation, his family's approval, even his career. But here's where it gets really interesting. Emily isn't just some sweet, innocent nurse. She's got her own demons, her own reasons for keeping walls up. And when Daniel starts digging, he uncovers something he never expected. A truth so shocking, it could destroy everything they've built. The question is, will love be enough to save them? Or will the secrets tear them apart? I know what you're thinking. Asterisk, just tell me what happens. Asterisk, trust me, I will. But not yet. Because the best part of this story? The part that'll have you screaming at your screen, the twist you won't see coming? Oh, it's coming. So hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and get ready. Because this is just the beginning. Dr. Daniel Carter wasn't just any surgeon. He was the surgeon, the one whose name carried weight in every elite medical circle from New York to Los Angeles. His hands had saved lives that others had given up on, his research had redefined modern medicine, and his bank account reflected the kind of success most only dreamed of. But none of that mattered the night he got the call. His mother, the woman who had worked 3 jobs just to put him through med school, was now lying in a hospital bed, her body failing her. The irony wasn't lost on him. He could fix strangers, but he couldn't fix her. And that helplessness? It ate at him, gnawing at the carefully constructed armor of confidence he wore like a second skin. Enter Emily Hayes. She wasn't just another nurse in the oncology ward. She was the one who stayed late, the one who held patients' hands when the pain became too much, the one who remembered every family member's name. There was something about her, an unshakable calm, a quiet strength, that made even the most terrified patients exhale when she walked in. Daniel noticed it immediately. At first, it was just gratitude. She was taking care of his mother, after all. But then, he started noticing other things. The way her laughter echoed softly down the hallway, the way her eyes flickered with something unreadable whenever he thanked her, the way she always seemed to be holding back more than she let on. What Daniel didn't know was that Emily had her own reasons for working the night shift, for keeping her head down, for never letting anyone get too close. She wasn't running from something. She was running toward something. A promise she'd made years ago, one that had led her to this hospital, to this very ward. And then there was the file. The one buried deep in her locker, the one with a name on it that would send shockwaves through Daniel's world if he ever saw it. But Emily wasn't about to let that happen. She'd worked too hard, sacrificed too much, to let a handsome doctor with a savior complex unravel everything. Meanwhile, the hospital had its own secrets. Whispers of missing medications, of patients whose conditions worsened unexpectedly, of a shadowy figure who always seemed to vanish before anyone could get a good look. Daniel, consumed by his growing feelings for Emily and his mother's declining health, barely noticed the strange occurrences at first. But then his mother's monitor flatlined one night, just for a few terrifying seconds, and when it came back on, Emily was the only one in the room. Coincidence? Maybe. But when Daniel found a crumpled note in the trash later that night, they're watching. Don't trust him. He couldn't shake the feeling that something much bigger was at play. And then there was Rebecca, Daniel's ex-fiancée, a fellow surgeon who'd never quite gotten over their breakup. She'd been watching from the sidelines, her sharp eyes missing nothing. The way Daniel looked at Emily, the way Emily stiffened whenever certain doctors walked by. Rebecca had her own theories, her own vendettas, and she wasn't above using them to her advantage. After all, if anyone deserved to expose the truth, it was her. The tension was a live wire, crackling just beneath the surface of every interaction. Daniel was falling for a woman who might be hiding the one thing that could destroy him. Emily was guarding a truth that could either save them or ruin everything. And someone, maybe multiple someones, was pulling strings behind the scenes, manipulating events in ways neither of them could yet see. The question wasn't just will they end up together? It was will they survive long enough to find out? And then, the night everything changed. Daniel, unable to sleep, went back to the hospital in the dead of night. He wasn't even sure why. Instinct, maybe. But what he saw when he turned the corner stopped him cold. Emily, standing in the dim glow of a hallway light, handing an envelope to someone in a lab coat. The person turned just enough for Daniel to catch a glimpse of their face. And in that moment, the ground dropped out from under him. Because it was someone he knew. Someone he trusted. Someone who had no business being anywhere near Emily, or his mother. But before he could react, before he could demand answers, the alarms blared. Code blue. Room 407. His mother's room. And just like that, the choice was made for him. Run toward the chaos or chase the truth. He couldn't do both. And whichever he picked, nothing would ever be the same again. So what's it gonna be, Daniel? Save the woman who raised you? Or uncover the secret that might break you? Stick around, because this story is about to take a turn you won't believe. And trust me, you do not want to miss what happens next. Daniel's feet moved before his mind could process the choice. His mother's room, the screaming alarms, the crushing fear that he might already be too late. The hallway blurred as he sprinted, his pulse roaring in his ears, but when he burst through the door, the scene wasn't what he expected. The bed was empty. No crash cart, no frantic team of nurses. Just silence and the steady beep of a monitor that had been reset. And then he saw it, a single rose on the pillow, its petals too red, too perfect, like a warning written in a language he didn't yet understand. His hands shook as he reached for it, and that's when his phone buzzed. An unknown number. A message that turned his blood to ice. Asterisk, ask her about the night your father died. Asterisk, Emily. This had to be about Emily. But his father's death had been a car accident. A rainy night, a swerve into oncoming traffic, a tragedy with no witnesses. At least, that's what the police report had said. Daniel had been in med school then, drowning in grief and exams, and he'd never questioned it. Until now. The pieces spun in his head, his mother's sudden decline, Emily's secrecy, the envelope exchanged in the shadows. None of it made sense, and yet some deep primal instinct whispered that it was all connected. He needed answers, and there was only one person who might have them. But finding Emily wouldn't be easy. Because by the time he tore through the hospital searching for her, she was gone. Not just off shift. Gone. Her locker cleared out, her name scrubbed from the schedule, as if she'd never existed at all. Meanwhile, Rebecca was making moves of her own. She'd seen Daniel's obsession with Emily, the way it clouded his judgment, and she knew a sinking ship when she saw one. But this wasn't just about jealousy, it was about survival. The hospital's board was meeting in 2 days to vote on the new chief of surgery, and Daniel had been the shoo-in. Until now. Rebecca had files of her own, meticulously collected, security footage of Emily accessing restricted records, discrepancies in medication logs, even a grainy photo of Emily meeting with a man whose face was obscured but whose posture screamed danger. She didn't know the whole story yet, but she knew enough to weaponize it. And if destroying Daniel's reputation was the price to secure her own future? Well, some betrayals were just good business. But the real twist? Emily wasn't running. She was hunting. The envelope she'd handed off hadn't been a payoff. It was evidence. Years ago, her younger brother had died in this very hospital. His cancer treatment mysteriously derailed by a clerical error, that redirected his medication to another patient, a wealthy one. The kind of patient whose family could make problems disappear. She'd spent years piecing it together, going undercover as a nurse in every hospital linked to the scandal, and Daniel's mother was the final thread. Because Eleanor Carter hadn't just been sick, she'd been poisoned. Slowly, expertly, with a toxin that mimicked natural organ failure. And the man Emily had met in the hallway? He was a whistleblower from the pharmaceutical company that had covered it all up. The same company Daniel's father had been investigating the night his car, accidentally, veered off the road. Daniel was standing in the center of a storm he didn't even see coming, and the clock was ticking. His mother's life hung in the balance, his career was on the brink of collapse, and the woman he'd fallen for might be the only one who could save him, or the one who'd been sent to destroy him. And then, just when he thought the stakes couldn't get higher, a new message appeared on his screen. This time it was a video. Grainy, dark, but unmistakable. His mother, awake and terrified, whispering into the camera, "Daniel, if you're seeing this, don't trust anyone. Especially not the people you love." The screen went black. And in that moment, Daniel realized, this wasn't just a game of secrets. It was a war. And the only way out was through. But who was the enemy? The hospital? The shadowy figures pulling strings from the dark? Emily? Or had the real threat been hiding in plain sight all along? The answer was coming, whether he was ready or not. And trust me, you are not ready for what happens next. Hit that like button, turn on notifications, and brace yourself. Because the next chapter? It changes everything. Daniel's world shattered as the video ended, his mother's desperate warning echoing in his skull. Every instinct screamed at him to call the police, to storm the hospital and demand answers. But the chilling truth was, he didn't know who to trust. The system had failed his father. It was failing his mother. And now, it was coming for him. With shaking hands, he dialed the only number he could think of, his mentor, Dr. Elias Grant, the man who'd guided him through residency. But when Elias answered, his voice was strained, his words laced with something Daniel had never heard before. Fear. Meet me at the old research lab. And Daniel, come alone. The lab was a relic from the hospital's early days, a maze of rusted equipment and flickering lights, the kind of place where secrets went to die. Elias was waiting, his face gaunt under the dim glow of a single bulb. What he revealed next unraveled everything. The pharmaceutical giant behind his father's death hadn't just covered up faulty drugs, they'd weaponized them. Eleanor Carter hadn't been randomly targeted. She was a test subject, chosen because her son, Daniel, was the only surgeon skilled enough to reverse the damage if things went wrong. They needed him compliant, desperate enough to sign over his research on an experimental antidote. And Emily? She'd been sent to monitor him, to gauge his loyalty. But somewhere along the way, the plan had backfired. She'd fallen for him. And now, she was marked for betrayal too. Daniel's knees nearly buckled under the weight of it all. His entire life, his father's death, his mother's illness, even his career, had been engineered by people who saw lives as ledger entries. But before he could process it, the door burst open. Rebecca stood there, her lab coat splattered with blood, her eyes wild. She wasn't the villain. She was the distraction. Behind her, a security team in unmarked uniforms advanced, their guns trained on Elias. Run! Rebecca screamed, throwing herself at the guards in a suicidal charge. Daniel didn't hesitate. He ran, through back corridors, down fire escapes, into the storm-lashed night. But he wasn't fleeing. He was hunting. Emily found him at the docks, where the city's medical waste was shipped out under cover of darkness. She was bruised, bleeding, but alive. The truth spilled between them like a floodgate breaking. She'd never meant to lie. Her brother's death had been the first thread, and pulling it had led her to Daniel. But love had changed the game. Together, they had proof, Elias's files, Rebecca's recordings, even a confession from a dying guard. It was enough to burn the whole operation down. But the cost? Elias was dead. Rebecca was missing. And Eleanor's time was running out. The final play was a gamble. Daniel walked into the hospital's boardroom the next morning, live streaming to every news outlet that would listen. He named names, showed documents, played recordings. The chaos was instant. CEOs resigned. Arrests were made. And in the whirlwind, Emily slipped into Eleanor's room and administered the antidote, stolen from the lab the night before. It worked. Slowly, color returned to Eleanor's cheeks. Her vitals stabilized. For the first time in months, she opened her eyes and recognized her son. But the twist? The real mastermind wasn't some faceless executive. It was Daniel's own uncle, the man who'd taken him in after his father's death. He'd orchestrated it all. Not for money, but for control. Daniel's research, his brilliance, was meant to be his legacy. The revelation was a knife to the heart, but it was also freedom. The lies were over. 1 year later, the scars were still there, but so was the hope. Daniel and Emily opened a free clinic in his father's name. A place where no one would ever be a pawn in someone else's game. Rebecca's body was never found, but sometimes, Daniel swore he saw her, a shadow in a crowd, a face in a passing train. Watching. Waiting. Maybe even protecting. And that's the real lesson, isn't it? Love doesn't just break you. It rebuilds you. Stronger. Smarter. Ready to fight for what matters. So tell me, what would you have done? Would you have trusted? Fought? Ran? Drop your answer in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. Because the world's full of stories like this one. And the next one? It might just be yours.